Hello to all of our friends out there in Parent Tween Connection land, whether you're tuning in on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or on YouTube. I am super excited to have you join us today. My name is Clarissa Constantine. I'm the founder of Parent Tween Connection, and I am super excited to have Ashley Hugghins, who is a longtime photographer. She specializes or has specialized for years with in photographing high school seniors, especially. But she pivoted in her career, and she says she's a photographer turned self-worth and mindset mentor who helps teens and young women develop confidence, set meaningful goals, and build lasting self-worth. Where were you, Ashley, 25 years ago? My goodness.
25 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, at least that,
15.
maybe longer. Gotcha. Well, and this topic that we're talking about today, Ashley, is so important because comparison, negative self-talk, external validation, those are so common. Like those pressures are such common pressures that our teenagers are facing. And the tools that we can share with parents and that parents can then share with their kids, it's so important to set the tone not only for success now, but for success long term in terms of relationships and business and career and all of that. Like there's so much that's so important. So first, I want to say thank you for joining me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I love being able to share what I've learned and especially share it with girls before they are in their late 30s like I was and can work through these things a little healthier than I think we grew up with.
Well, and a friend of mine who's an education specialist herself always says, like, especially with younger kids, let them do dangerous things safely. And, self-worth and self-image certainly aren't negative things or dangerous things, but the way that we teach them sometimes, the more of a safe environment we can create for them, the better, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So and I think that's all coming out now.
Finally, right? Finally. Yeah. So we're going to start our conversation today talking about how comparison is the thief of joy. And I didn't actually start acknowledging this for myself until my 40s. So, some folks hit it in their 30s. Some of us hit it in our 40s. I'd rather my 40s than my 50s. But tell me, what are the influences that you see showing up for teens today? I think some of them may be pretty obvious, but let's go with the obvious as well. But like, what are some of the influences that they're navigating, maybe that are different from the influences that we had when we were younger?
Right. Exactly. I mean, as an entrepreneur, we always hear imposter syndrome. And it's so true even for the younger generation. So when we were younger, it was TV and magazines. I had a subscription to 17 magazine or something like that. So every month I would see these beautiful girls in here, but oh, I wish I looked like them, or I wish I had these type of clothes. Same with TV. But you kind of knew that TV stars and movie stars were more made up. It wasn't real life. So in comes social media. And not only are we seeing real life people in real time, it is 24/7, 365 in your face. And while I do love social media, it has some amazing things that it does for us. It's a love-hate relationship because I, like many of these other girls, start to feel inadequate. For me, it might be something different. It's always the looks and the physical things, but then there's also, with me as an adult, I'm like, oh, well, my kitchen doesn't look like that, or my house doesn't look like that. My wardrobe doesn't look like that. And sometimes you can't quite pinpoint what it is, but all of a sudden you just get that heavy feeling or that sadness. And somebody says something to you, and you're like, I'll deal with it later. And you're like, why am I so testy right now? And it's because your brain is absorbing all of these messages and all of these things that you're telling it. Even if you're not saying it out loud, you're thinking to yourself, man, I wish I had that. And so, of course, social media plays a huge role. And then, of course, your peers. Another place that we got to compare ourselves was in public and in school. I was always the tall girl. I've been tall since I was probably 14 or 15 years old. Tall girls unite. And so, that was hard for me to navigate because I was taller than all the girls, but for a long time I was taller than all the boys. And
Mm-hmm.
so as a girl, you don't feel feminine, you feel a bit like an outcast. So of course you start comparing yourself. And that's actually one positive about social media, is that you can look on there and see other people that are like you and see what their challenges are and how they move through things. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I said you have to sort of balance that, what makes you feel good and what makes you feel bad. And we'll talk about that actually in a little bit.
Sure. So, it's you were talking about the ways that even as adults we can fall into that imposter syndrome or that comparison. I know as an entrepreneur, I've certainly experienced, and this is certainly not 100% in the past, when I see other entrepreneurs showing up and doing really cool things and things that like, I wish I'd have thought of that. Now, if I decide to
Mhm.
do it, they're going to think I'm a copycat. Or, wow, she's showing up consistently and I wish I could show up that consistently. And I mean, even at our ages, we're still comparing. So here's my next question: what's your perspective on how we avoid that? Because we're gonna see it, like you said, social media and all these things have positives, but whew, it's a
Yeah,
doozy.
no, it is definitely a work in progress. So
Mhm.
I have been at this for about 6 years. Recovering pessimist, self-esteem, worthless kind of person. So the first thing that I like to do is realize when it's happening. And a lot of times that is the first step, is to realize the thought that you're having. Oh, I feel inadequate. Oh, I feel like she's prettier than me. And stopping it in its tracks. And literally saying out loud to yourself, nope, we're not doing this. Like, this is not helpful. This is not helping anything. And even parents can do it. They see these families and they're getting these beautiful family photos and everyone looks happy and they've got the matching pajamas and they're doing this and their kids are making straight A's and getting into these colleges. So it's not just it's not just the teenagers, it's also the moms. And you have to remember that everyone is on their own timeline and everyone is
Mhm.
here for a specific purpose. You can tell girls all day long, their moms tell them all day long, oh no, you are beautiful, don't worry about it. But if they don't believe it, you can tell them till you're blue in the face and they don't
Mhm.
believe you. So one of the things that I love to do when I was a photographer, or when I do photograph girls, is just hyping them up, because hearing another adult say
Mhm.
positive things about them, and I even try not to make it about looks, but because obviously photography in portraits, the main focus, of course, is what you see on the outside. But just really getting to know them and being like, wow, I can't believe you do this. You tell me more about this volunteer work that you do, and let them know how important those things
Mhm.
are, those things that they do. So yeah, I think recognizing when you're feeling that way, or when you see your child acting or feeling that way, excuse me, and remembering that everyone has their own path. And when you remember that, it can be very, very helpful in starting that, in being consistent with it is definitely the key. But it's not going to be, okay, let me just switch my mindset and stop
Right.
thinking about this stuff and then it goes away.
Can I add a thought onto this, especially as we're talking like mother
Absolutely.
daughter dynamics? So, so many of us, I think, especially women, fall into the treating ourselves worse than we would treat other people trap,
Mhm.
right? Or the thoughts, our mental thoughts. The things I say to myself are so much worse than anything I would ever say to you, Ashley, because I would never be that mean to you. And yet it's somehow okay to be mean to me. So one of the things that my friends and I do is we'll look at each other and we'll be like, nope, you can't say that. You
Mhm.
can't treat you worse. Like, would you say that to me? And if the answer is no, then you need to be aware. And like, I'm going to challenge you on that. Like, stop that thought process. And what a cool dynamic that could be between moms and daughters, or even dads and daughters. But I think moms get this in a way that dads might not, of like, hey, mom, would you say that to me? No, then stop. Like, I'm going to challenge you to stop it. Like, what a cool, like, almost team effort that we could create in that
Yeah,
dynamic.
absolutely. Absolutely. There was a study done, and it was girls and their younger sisters. And these girls were writing down what are all the things what are things that you say to yourself negatively? And ask them to write them all down. And then they said, okay, we're going to go in this other room where all your little sisters are. And we want you to look at that list and we want you to look them in the eye. I want you to say all those things to them. And
Mm.
it's kind of like, ooh, if you wouldn't say it to your best friend, there's an exercise that I do at this workshop. And I'm like, I want you to think of one thing that you say to yourself all the time. Now I want you to look at the person next to you and I want you to say it out loud to them. And all the girls are like,
Mhm.
oh gosh, no. It's like, if you wouldn't say that to somebody else, why in the world would you
Yep.
say it to your number one?
Correct. Absolutely. So we've talked about how they're influenced. Obviously, a lot is social media and talking about looking at them, recognizing the other people are on their own journeys. We're all here for our own purpose, and literally telling ourselves verbally, stop the thought, like recognizing the thought and stop it, right? Whether it's internally or with a partner. Talk to me about your perspective on setting meaningful, measurable goals and how that plays into comparison being the thief of joy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially as an entrepreneur, I can really pull from some real world experience. When people talk about goals, they talk about this big pie in the sky goal, which are amazing to have, 5-year goals and 10-year goals. And people think that if they don't reach those goals, they failed. So
Mhm.
let's say your goal was to make the soccer team this past spring, and you worked really hard and you didn't make it. So immediately you think, I failed. There's my
Mhm.
goal gone. Well, let's step back a little bit. What did we gain from that? Okay, we practiced every day, so our skills are better. Probably got some really good exercise and probably really fit, and we're probably really fueling our body. So maybe a new habit was formed that you're like, oh, I feel really good when I get outside and I run around and I eat really well. So now that's just part of your life. So there's another positive. And maybe during tryouts you made some new friends. Maybe some people who also didn't make the team, and now you can practice together and you have some new connections there.
Mhm.
So I think it's so important, especially with teenagers, is that there's going to be a lot of upset in their life. There's going to be a lot of
Mhm.
feeling inadequate, feeling not good enough because they didn't make a team, they didn't ace this test. And so I think reframing that as, okay, well, what are the things that you did achieve? And I always say it's so important to define what your success is and know that failure is never the end of the road. Failure is just a
Mhm.
learning process. And this is something I'm guilty of and that I am constantly learning because I hate to fail. It makes
Mhm.
me feel like a failure. And I've had to stop myself and go, okay, no, what did we learn from this experience? And there's always something that you can pick out, or what is something positive that came from this experience? And it always happens that way. But I think also helping them define what their success is for this goal. Are you wanting this goal because everybody else is doing it, or because some celebrity said you needed it, or this or that? I live in a very modest home. Everyone says, oh, you need to upgrade, you need to have the best car, you need to do this. I drive a 15, 16-year-old car because
Mhm.
I don't define my success by the car that I drive or the
Mhm.
house that I live in, like the keeping up with the Joneses. Yeah, so like all that to say, write down what are the things that you were able to accomplish on your way to this goal. As they say, it's not about the destination; it's about the journey.
Of the journey. Mhm.
So I think reminding your kids when they do fail in something is what they gained from that experience, and then of course you try again, always try
Sure.
again. And
Sure.
there's so many examples of celebrities that this has happened to,
Mhm.
in people in the sports world. Athletes are constantly failing. There's something about Michael Jordan missed, I think it was like 38 game winning goals, and he was like, but
Shots,
everybody
yeah.
remembers me as the GOAT. So it's
Right.
everybody
Absolutely.
has their failures.
Well, and you made a comment along the way that I really want to underscore for parents. You said something along like, I hate failing because then I feel like a failure. And I want to make sure that we're sending the message as much as we can to the people in our world that a failure, if that's how we're going to define it, like not achieving a goal, not making the soccer team, not getting the A on the test, not closing a client, whatever that is, not meeting a goal doesn't mean that you as a human being are a failure. And it's really, really hard for our kids to recognize that. and recognizing that we want to separate the behavior from the being, the behavior from the human. I tell my friends' kids all the time, like, I love you regardless of the behaviors that you exhibit. I may very much not like your behaviors, but that doesn't mean that I don't love you. And so I think a lot of times, especially those of us who find ourselves in situations where we receive accolades for accomplishments, we equate our self-worth with those accomplishments, not because we're just worthy in and of ourselves.
Exactly. I try to disassociate myself from those failures because it means nothing about me. It's just something that happened in my life. They say, you're not, I'm not anxious. I'm feeling anxious.
Correct.
I'm
Right.
not a failure. I'm just feeling sad that this thing didn't work out. And when a
Right.
lot of times when kids can recognize that emotion and work through that emotion, be like, I'm sad and I didn't get this, or I didn't accomplish this thing, but I'll be okay. Tomorrow is another day. I'm going to
Right.
move past this. I think is so, so important.
So then I know another point that you work a lot with your clients on is about building healthy habits to help them focus on things that aren't what everyone else is doing. Because if we can change our focus to other places, then comparison becomes a less likely outcome in the first place. So talk to me about helping them set those habits or establish those habits, what kinds of habits, and what's the impact there?
Yeah, I think one of the most important ones going back to the social media, because we have had a sharp decline in self-esteem in the ages in between to college age, particularly girls, but it is amongst girls and boys. Just a declining mental health and depression, honestly.
Mhm.
And that that goes along with the implementation of social media and kids getting on social media younger and younger.
Mhm.
So the first thing I would say is obviously each parent and child is different, but don't give your kids social media before you really think that they're ready for it. I know, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls have it. And for some people, that's not a problem. But for a lot of girls and boys, it is. So I
Mhm.
think just talking that over with them and really weighing the pros and cons of that. But for people who already are on social media, who may be a little bit older, the biggest thing you can do is self-audit the things that you are consuming. Social media, podcasts, YouTube videos, news. I know me and my husband were getting to the point where we would just watch the beginning of the nightly news. And I'm like, can you just, I feel anxious all day long. And this is just making it worse. I've got all these other things on my brain. And then I hear negative, negative, all these terrible things that are happening in the world. And so we just had to stop watching it. And I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but you do what you need to do for your own mental health. Stay in the know as much as you can, but to watch that every single night while I'm trying to have some time with my husband, we've been away from each other all day long. Bedtime is in 2 or 3 hours, and you get all that stuff on your brain. You're going to process that and take that with you. And all of a sudden you'd be like, why am I so anxious? Why am I so sad today? So I think unfollowing anybody, any account, even, they don't have to necessarily be a bad person, just anything
Mhm.
that makes you feel inadequate. I know there was a lot of photographers that I used to follow for inspiration, and they would come through my feed and I'm like, oh, I'm not as good as them. Oh, they've got way more clients than me. Wow, I really wish I was as creative as them. And I think
Mhm.
I deleted all but maybe a handful of photographers because it was just not making me feel good mentally.
Mhm.
Um, the same with influencers or like I said, I don't know how much people listen to young people listen to podcasts. I know those are huge for us, but even podcasts, YouTube creators, a lot of times, like I said, they don't necessarily have to be bad for you. Just you don't need them in your life right now because they
Mhm.
are triggering something, some insecurity that you have. Um,
Right.
and so that's definitely like my main one.
So that's a lot of like cutting out the things, like recognizing what isn't fueling you, either, physically, emotionally, mentally. What are some habits that you encourage them to incorporate that can help take their focus away from some of the areas where comparison comes out most?
Yeah, sure. So I think if they can, the most important time of day is as soon as you wake up in the morning. So as soon as you wake up in the morning is when your brain is the most influenced. So of course, most people wake up in the morning. What's the first thing they do? I grab my phone. Let me see what's going on in the world. Nothing that has to do with me. Let me see what everybody else in the world is doing and all the cool things that they've been up to and all the things that happened overnight that I missed. I got to know everything that's going on.
Yep.
And so I decided, I do have my alarm on my phone, but if you can't control yourself, get an old school alarm clock, and that is your alarm. Your phone is in another room. If you can't do that, I always say don't look at your phone for at least 30 minutes. If you can do an hour, that would be amazing. But for 30 minutes, it should be nothing of the outside world. It should be all what is going on with you, because that is all that matters. And so it's good to have something calming to do. So for me, it's coffee. I love having my morning coffee. I know most teenagers aren't going to drink coffee, but something calm. If you, hey, I was getting lattes when I was a senior in high school. I do remember doing latte runs in the morning. But doing something, reading, meditation. I know some kids are into that. Journaling is a huge part of my morning routine now, because it helps you just kind of get the junk out of your brain. And one thing I tell actually my boys is, the first thing when you wake up in the morning, instead of being like, oh, these are all the things that I have to do today. I've got to do this. I've got a test. I've got this, blah, blah. Just be grateful. Hey, I woke up today. I'm breathing. I'm rolling out of bed. I don't have to be in a rush because I woke up on time, and today is going to be great. I'm going to do my very best today, and I'm going to look for all the awesome things that are happening in my day today. Are all those things going to happen? Maybe, maybe not. But you're training your brain to look for the positive things in the day.
Absolutely.
And the opposite is true too. If you tell yourself today's going to be a terrible day, your brain's going to find all these little things that you may not have even noticed that went wrong in your day.
Right.
And then you're going to go through your entire day in a mood, and guess where you're going to end up at night? Anxious and upset. You're going to go to bed that way. And it's just the way that we have been wired, and undoing that takes some time. So if every morning you just say to yourself, I'm so excited I'm awake, I can't wait to see what happens today. Just that's all you have to do. Then you can start to set yourself up for that success.
That's awesome. All right. I hate to do this, but we need to round this out, because you and I are going to go have a conversation in Parent Tween Village next, talking about how to develop a growth mindset, which is one of my absolute favorite topics of all time. So if people are interested, Ashley, in learning more about the coaching and the support that you offer to parents and or kids, where can they learn more about you?
Sure. So right now I've got everything combined on my photography pages, which I love because they kind of go hand in hand. So everything is urbantrendstudios.com, at Urban Trend Studios. And I've got some tips and some videos on there. And then hopefully we'll be making my YouTube channel a little more active so that I can reach some more people.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ashley, for being with me. There's been some really good, tangible, tactical, simple steps that folks can implement. And the more that we implement these as adults, the easier it is for the kids around us to model us. Because I'll tell you, moms and dads, if you think your kids aren't watching you, they may not listen. They may be pushing back. They are watching. And we are, as the adults in their worlds, whether you're mom and dad, aunt, uncle, whoever you are, you're still an influence on them. So doing these things ourselves can have a massive impact on them. So thank you, Ashley, and I will see you over in Parent Tween Village shortly.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Clarissa.
Have a great one, everybody.